Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. It is positively football season. I know this because the peaches are ripe and it's 100 degrees out. And, man, that used to mean trips up to Westminster, and then that meant bleachers on the back fields in Owings Mills. And for this guy who once covered the Baltimore Orioles during the salad days, covering the Ravens has changed dramatically from his days at the Baltimore Sun, along with my compadre, Luke Jones, who's always out in Owings Mills. Jeff Zrebiec is covering all things football and the Ravens for The Athletic. Zrebiec, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't miss most of the media people, in the media contingent, but I do miss you, so I just want to say, the fact that I'm not going to lay eyes on you or be in a room or fist bump or BS or bitch or praise or do any of the, whatever we do together, it is good to have you on the program, and I appreciate you making a little time. And dude, how you doing, man? How you hanging in there? Forget the football. How's the Zrebiec family? Because you got things happen. You're a family man.
Yeah. It's that's the silver lining of all this. I'm getting these last 4 months. I've had more time with my 2-year-old than I ever thought I would get. And normally he'd be in daycare, and obviously he's been home with my wife and I as we balance our jobs and taking care of him. And anytime I got down on things, and everyone has gone through that during this period, but every time I got down, I try to remind myself that I'll never get this time back. So, no, we're great. We're healthy, still employed, which is that you have those two things checked off during all this. There's not too much you can complain about otherwise. But thanks for having me. It's good to hear from you as well.
Man, I go in a lot of directions here, and, I have all sorts of – I had Jamie Raskin on this week. I've had sports writers on this week. Guys, you and I think of ourselves as old farts, and we've been doing this, and we're professionals, and then you have John McClain on, who's been, doing this 30 years longer than either one of us. So, and just all over the map. I had Kevin Byrne on a couple weeks ago, old timers. And first off, none of this there's any precedent for any of this or how to handle any of this or how it will be handled. And certainly for a guy like you, who, if football shuts down, you won't have a gig. Me, I'm doing different things with my gig at this point. And, Luke's doing his deal with baseball and football, and the Athletic's trying to keep it together and keep me reading. And, your colleagues and you doing a great job of writing and doing the things that I love and covering sports in a different kind of way this summer. But, I have said this, and I'm not the guy cheering against sports, bro, but I don't think this is a good idea, right? And I don't think it's a good idea because I don't think they can finish it. But the more people I talk to, and I talked to McClain earlier this week, and he's convinced that unless somebody dies, they're just going to play. And baseball, and you covered baseball a long time, and you were around those miserable people for a long, long time, and the Rob Manfreds of the world, the baseball thing sets a precedent, Jeff, of no matter what. Like, they don't care that 18 players got it. They'll sign 18 more, and they'll sweep the Orioles, And, and somebody will drive the bus back from Philadelphia with infected play. Like, the machine will not stop, and they don't care if Lamar Jackson's mother gets it or dies. They just don't. That's the part of this that I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs all testing positive. They're just going to shut them down for 2 weeks and pick the season back up and move the Super Bowl to March. They'll find a way. That's my opinion at this point. And I thought they would make a sounder, more rational decision than that based on Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know there's that argument, and a lot of sports writers are being criticized for, for acting like they don't want a season, like they want all sports to be canceled. I'm just going to talk personally. That's ridiculous because I'd be out of a job, I would imagine, So, and that's the last thing I want. I absolutely want there to be a football season, but it certainly does in a lot of cases appear that the NFL has its blinders on, and it has from day one, and making sure all this stuff that, you could do without OTAs, you could do without rookie mini camps, but, you weren't going to do without the draft, so they made sure that happened, and they made sure free agency happened with no delay. The stuff they view as imperative, and it all got done, and it seems like they're full throttle here heading into training camp. I'm sure they're going to paint these early numbers. I think the last I saw was about 56 positive tests among players, and most of these teams have about 80 on the roster. So, you could do the percentage from there. It's lower than I thought, but this is before we've had contact, and before we've had players getting in this groove where they've been here for a while, and we'll see if they can continue to behave professionally and responsibly and not go out and not do things that put their teammates in jeopardy.
Do you mind if I laugh when you say that? Like I go, huh?
Yeah,
I've been around this a long time. I mean, the Earl Thomas story will be a cautionary tale for anyone throughout this COVID thing as to what could happen. And, bro, I don't know what they're it's might not even be any good, right? Like, that's the dirty little secret now that we're 2 weeks into this experiment and it's August, right? Baseball's on every night. Hockey's on every day, like a World Cup tournament. Basketball, they're playing. I don't know that any of it is particularly compelling. Really, like, as we want it to be. It feels like the first time you had skim milk. You know what I mean? There's something missing.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I'm a big hockey fan. I'm actually, I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm a big Rangers fan. And the hockey that I watched them play in the series with the Hurricanes, where they got swept. And granted, the Hurricanes played at a much higher level, but it was not enjoyable to me. I mean, you have a guy like Artemi Panarin, who's a candidate for the MVP, one of the top 3 players in hockey this year. And he was at times having trouble to complete a pass to someone else's stick. And it was not enjoyable to me. I watched a good part of it. I'm sure Carolina Hurricanes fans found it plenty enjoyable. But, yeah, I think there's going to be intrigue about what's the level at. With all these rules and the fact that there's so much missed this offseason, where's the level of play? There's things that they didn't get in football that you can't replicate. Are these guys just going to go 100 miles an hour in week 1, after not doing a whole lot and after having this ramp-up session? And is the quality of play going to be the same? Are there not going to be more injuries? I think the skepticism is fair. And you know what, Nestor? I kind of agree with John McClain. I've said that all along. I hate to sound morbid, but it's almost like it's going to take something as severe as a death of an athlete for people to say, wait a second, what are we doing here? Maybe it's time to shut this down.
Well, like Doug Peterson, Sunday night, he's the leader. Like, he's the guy in there telling everybody, don't go out, don't pull an Earl Thomas, and then he's dirty, right? It's a contagious pathogen, right? So, like, even the leadership can't show leadership because they can't avoid it, right? And that's probably the hardest part of all of this is that the leadership part of this and the trust part of this is once you're dirty, everybody thinks maybe you did something you shouldn't have done, and you might have touched an Amazon package, for crying out loud, right?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, my family, we've done nothing since March. I mean, we've seen some family in limited gatherings. I've gone out and picked up takeout. We've done grocery shopping in odd hours where there's nobody there. I mean, we've done the absolute bare minimum that we've had to do, and we've exposed our 2-year-old to nothing, because of the concern. And yet I have zero sense of confidence that I'll never get it. You just don't know. As you said, picking up a package, going to get your mail, you don't know. And I'm still, you can't assume, just like, and I know Derek Jeter kind of had this passionate defense of his players, saying, that you can't assume everyone was just frolicking out and doing the wrong things. And it's true to an extent. I don't know what the Marlins in particular were doing, but you could do as much as possible as precautions, do everything right, and you could still get it, and you unknowingly, and then pass it along to a lot of other people. So, I enjoyed your chuckle about, players. Training camp's a stressful time. You have young kids who are trying to make the team, trying to establish themselves, trying to deal with a new phase of their professional life. A lot of them have money for the first time. I mean, you don't think there's going to be temptation this summer to blow off some steam and head out to a restaurant or a local bar or go out and hang out with some friends? I mean, no matter how many veterans are speaking to these players, coaches, veterans, about doing the right things and not going out and not ruining it for everyone else. I mean, you have 80 kids on the 80 guys on the roster right now, not to mention coaches, support staff. I mean, there's just so many opportunities for people to do stuff that they shouldn't do, and that's going to be, the discipline and all that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, the list of the things you shouldn't do used to be booby bars, casinos, out after midnight in Fells Point. It was only a handful of things. Now it's like everything, literally. Jeff Zrebiec is here from The Athletic. You can follow him. Tens of thousands do. I want to go back to your hockey thoughts and my baseball thoughts about watching this and, watching Scott Garceau and Ben McDonald every night. And I would say this. The integrity with which baseball has done this has been perhaps the most disturbing part of the whole thing, because there really is no integrity in the product when the best players aren't playing. In some places, when Cespedes cleans his locker out on Saturday afternoon on the Mets, more and more of that's going to be happening. There's going to be more dirty tests because there is no bubble in baseball. And even more so, and you covered baseball as long as you've covered football. How many years you covered baseball, Jeff? Decade?
It was about 2004 to 2012.
Okay, a decade. I figured a decade. I mean, I read your work every day, and during that era, all those losing years, all the suffering that you did, my man, and the integrity of the sport, where the Yankees spend $300 million and the Orioles spend $40 million, right? That's a problem unto itself. And then you have the they've never had a problem fielding an imbalanced product. They've never had a problem with the Tigers or the Orioles losing 100, or the Astros losing 115 games and tanking and trading away, having fire sales with the Marlins and the Padres. They've never had that integrity issue. Dude, they played 7-inning games here with 18 guys on the DL, and that's where the integrity is. I got to tell you, if an NFL is going to play a year where the Lions don't have their quarterback and 3 teams are going to lose their quarterbacks and coaches are going to go down and offensive lines, and they're going to have, failures for the Chiefs to be able to make it to Arizona this weekend because the tests don't come back, and all of that's going to go on throughout the course of this season, and they're going to put this on and sanction it, literally sanction it. I'm telling you, man, I was making Shane Falco jokes. I've been doing that all week about where we're going to be. Mike Flynn saying he's going to play on the Ravens reserves. They're going to call him up. That's the issue for me. I mean, the issue for me is you watch the New York Rangers play with it on their chest, and it might as well have been the Binghamton Rangers having a summer workout, right? The level of play that they put the shield on, and I'm not paying to go see this, right? At this point, it's on in my living room. They're getting their money from, beer companies and wherever, and Geico, right? The integrity part of this is something that they would say, well, in the war they played baseball and blah, 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 blah. I hear all of that. We're not in a war here. You know what I mean? We're in a plague here, and you're doing a money grab here, and I reserve the right, in the same way that if I went to Pizza John's and the pizza was Chef Boyardee, or I went to Royal Farms and they were serving me frozen chicken, or whatever, right? If it's not any good, I might not want to eat it. And I really do have grave concerns about what they're trying to sanction here in that way, because they have been – the reason the NFL has been successful, in my opinion, is that they put a product on the field every week that you want to gamble on, root for, cheer for, root against, all of the above. And part of that has been because teams like the Miami Marlins and the Baltimore Orioles have rarely existed for long stretches of time in the NFL.
Yeah, and you just I'm interested to find out, and this will be a while, but how is this going to be treated if these seasons culminate and climax with a champion being crowned? What is are these players going to feel as? Is this going to be as rewarding? Is this season going to be an asterisk always? And
it's a game of Survivor.
Yeah, what kind of team is going to win? And going back to hockey, the Bruins were the President's Trophy winners, clear far and away the best team when the league was shut down, perennial Cup favorite, and they've lost their first couple qualifying games, and all of a sudden they can't be any better than the third or fourth seed. How is that? Like, what are we doing? Is that really measuring how good the teams are and where they should be after all the hockey that was played before everything stopped? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And I just, there's going to be a skepticism the rest of the way. I still sense it. Are people interested in the Ravens? Yes. I see my numbers on all my stories. I get the metrics. Who's clicking on what? Who's subscribing based on what? I can tell where my metrics are. And the Ravens have a great fan base, and I get a ton of support, and I appreciate that. But you could tell there remains a skepticism that they're going to be able to play, and it's going to be an enjoyable product. Not by everybody, but by some people. And as you said, you reserve the right to watch. If you're not happy with the product, you don't watch. So
I got baseball games on, and I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I'm contributing to this. You know what I mean? It's like not even any good. You know what I mean? Like and there's no chance of it being any good any night because of the players involved. The broadcasts aren't any good. The vibe's not any good. There's nothing really there to see that builds my mojo for baseball future. I mean, they're killing the minor leagues. I mean, that's baseball's saddle. Now football's about to saddle up and say, here we come. We're coming to save America. And I don't know what happens on October 10th if they have to shut it down. You know what I mean? Like all of it. And what would cause it to shut down? What would make Dan Snyder, Jerry Jones, Bob Kraft, and Roger Goodell get in a room with Rupert effing Murdoch and decide to turn off the spigot? What would do that? What's going to do that 3 weeks? Nothing. Right? Literally.
Yeah.
Nothing short of a presidential order. And that would only happen if they take too many knees, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, as John McLean said, I mean, yeah, you hate to say it, but is it going to take somebody passing away from this? Or all the best players, the Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jacksons and Aaron Donalds and Tom Brady's of the world just saying, we're done. We're not doing this.
Well, the Patriots aren't playing, right? I mean, the Patriots are literally, they are a replacement team now. They are the conscientious objectors of all of this, right?
It is interesting, Nestor. One thing about the opt-outs and, you see some of the a lot of the teams with the Super Bowl hopes, you're only seeing them lose one or two players, and then you see other teams who are just getting like the Patriots, who obviously most people don't expect them to be, in contention here, given all they lost. And you've seen them get gutted, by opt-outs and stuff. So it is interesting who's getting hit hardest. But, yeah, you can't blame any of these guys. This shaming because the guy is not playing or wants to do it and making a decision based on his health and family, it's ridiculous. But, you have to expect some of it given, what's going on now in this climate.
Well, and it's fascinating for you and me because we've flown around the country. I mean, you and I have been on airplanes. We've been upside down at 4 a.m. in airports. I mean, like literally, I mean, that's the life we've lived for years. And I look at, like McLean said, come on down to Houston. I'll take you. We'll socially distance. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about walking 6 blocks away to watch this in an environment where, like, I can't talk to the players. I can't, like the things that I do to make my job better, like to be more informed and all of that, all the things that you do. You and I know we're not going to touch any players. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But the part that, like, you're going to be in New England in that press box where you and I watch Billy Cundiff miss a kick, and then we watch Flacco slap him down, and then we watch them blow a 2-touchdown lead. All of that we're going to be there Thanksgiving week or whatever, and the Patriots are going to be 1-9, right? And the Ravens are going to be 9-1, or where that's really going to happen. Where there's 8,000 people in Foxborough. That's so surreal and weird to me that, like, I don't want to play in that Orwellian place. You know what I mean? Like, there would be nothing about that that feel fulfilling to me to fly into the Providence airport with you socially distanced and share an Uber up to, you know what I mean, to an empty Route 1 and go into an empty, like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, and the game I keep thinking of is, and correct me, I've not been thinking of their regular season schedule a whole lot lately, But the Chiefs game, Monday night in Baltimore, we all know the long complaints about no Monday night games in Baltimore. You got the defending champions coming to town, Mahomes versus Jackson, the team the Ravens are going to have to get over if they want to win the Super Bowl. Team that beaten the Ravens in back-to-back years, both times in Arrowhead. That game was going to be the most anticipated regular season game of the season, and you probably have a better idea on this, or you probably be able to think about it quicker. I don't recall a home game, a home regular season game, specifically early in the season, that will have had the attention that game would have. And it's just, if it happens, it's going to be totally anticlimactic. I mean, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, but it's not going to be the same. And you got into what we're going to be going through, and I'm with you. We go on the road. It's great to watch these games. It's part of our job. But as things stand, we get the same access to the game from our couches in Columbia and Farrell Hill or downtown Baltimore, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's the sense. You could basically drive to all these games if you don't want to fly, except probably Houston. But what are you driving to? You're driving to basically a half-empty press box where you can't go down and talk to the players after the game. You can't get anywhere near the field.
I don't know that I want the experience. I'm thinking about it right now, bro. I don't know that I want the experience of running into you at the airport, flying in an empty plane in a morbid airport, landing in Hobby, right? Renting a car or whatever, driving to some half-ass empty hotel, then getting up in the morning and driving to a half-empty Reliance Stadium, and not smelling barbecue out in that parking lot there that is incredible, and then going all the way up to the roof and sitting up there with Richard Justice and I've done that 8 times since Houston has opened, and I know what it represents in Deshaun Watson. I don't know that I want to, even as a writer, as the Hemingway in me, to chronicle it, to have the experience of the emptiness of it. I'm already living in this thing. I don't need to sign up for anything more morose than what we've already got here to make a bad memory. You know what I mean? About a football game that I feel like they're not going to make it through week 8 anyway if there was any integrity in this. I don't believe they're going to finish it, so that's why I probably don't believe they should start it.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly prefer avoiding all that stuff too. But I balance it personally. I want to be employed. I want to.
But you also don't want to bring back a virus to your kid, right? Like literally.
Absolutely. That's all stuff. You have to balance as we sort of get closer. Get closer to the being allowed to go to training camp, and we'll see how that plays out. And but there's just so much uncertainty day to day, and. As I said earlier, I sense the same sort of hesitation from a lot of fans. I sense that people are weary of getting engaged because they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then there's another section of people that, just aren't into it, don't feel like it's important, don't feel like they should be playing. So all that is going to be part of the climate here as we move forward.
Jeff Zrebiec is here from The Athletic. All right, so, but let's pretend the last 23 minutes didn't happen at all. Hey, they're going to play football. Camp's opening. Hey, we got the best team, don't we? And, hey, that Calais Campbell, and, hey, they might sign Antonio Brown. So we got all that, right? So speak to any of that and the significance of all, because it's all true, right? I mean, they are the best team, like all of that. And everything you talk about with the season and the Patriots being down and who are the Steelers and this old man Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, for all of that, all the purple in my soul that I have feels like this coulda, woulda, shoulda been a championship season.
Yeah, I think, you look, it's kind of telling where the Ravens are at, that people here in early August are fretting over who's going to be the third tight end. I mean, that's been like the big roster worry.
And we have too many running backs. I don't know if you've heard that. We have too many.
Yeah, and that's been the big roster worry for a team that, has rolled out the likes of Billy Bajema and Chris Wilson. I think Chris Wilson, if I'm not mistaken, and Devon Drew as their third tight end. Now I get it, how they run their offense nowadays. they do depend tight ends more than any team in the league. So I'm just making a little light of it. But, yeah, this is a pretty solid team on paper. Their questions are minuscule compared to what other teams are dealing with. The continuity of the coaching staff should be extremely important, in especially given what's gone on in the off season and just the client, and just what the Ravens are known for, the discipline and being well coached and well prepared. You kind of think in a season like this, the top organizations, the top teams, the ones that are the most disciplined and mentally tough and all that, you kind of feel like those are going to be the ones that kind of, if there is a season and it persists, you feel like those are going to be the ones that, are left standing in the end. But who knows? There's so many different variables. But, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about. I think it's fair to say, as of, if you'd asked me this 4.5 months ago, I would have probably told you that this is the most anticipated Ravens regular season in years. I don't, you may know better, but I don't recall anybody that was as excited, especially, in the, they get the middle linebacker in the first round of the draft and have a good draft. They already added Calais Campbell by then. They've really helped their defense. I think people are really excited about this team. The pundits think that they have the most deepest and most talented roster in the league. I'm not 100% sure about that, but they're certainly in the conversation. So, it'll be good to see them out there, at least practice and see what they have, because there's so many unknowns right now.
Well, man, I'd love to tell you that, next time you and I get together, we'll run into each other in the airport on the way up to Providence in November, and the Ravens will be 9-1, and the Patriots will be 1-9, and the virus will be gone, and we'll have a free and clear election and sane leadership, and we'll be able to have 30,000 in Foxborough that night, and you and I will be having legal seafood clam chowder or something. But I hope I see you sometime soon. I hope to reach back to you. I mean, I hope they're playing football. I hope we're safe. I hope. And, I hope you keep your job and I get to report on sports and get to keep my radio station and all of that. But I am a little skeptical about all of this. And that just sort of goes with the territory of this, right? And it's hard not to be skeptical, but we're covering this football thing as seriously as we can, literally.
Yeah.
And I think for those of us who are sane, who are journalists, who ask questions for a living, you can only be so optimistic about what a parade would look like here in the second week of February, because we have the best team and play a whole season of empty football.
Yeah, there's no question. And, I get some people on Twitter, that'll respond to a link I'll send out of an article. And they'll say, who cares? There's not going to be a season. Okay, that's great. Should I just shut it down and not write a single story about the football team? I mean, I don't really have that option. I have a job, and you have to produce content, and, you have to talk about other things than the football team as if there's going to be a football season as they're preparing for. So, I hope for all those same things. But, as we were talking about earlier, you wonder, what the season's going to be perceived at in the future. I'm sure that depends on a lot. That depends on a lot of factors that we don't even know about now that are going to kind of continue to develop here. But it's, the unknown, it's so much uncertainty now. And it's a shame, too. I know there's a lot bigger problems in our country than what's going on with the Ravens and all that. But it is, you do think about it. This was going to be such a anticipated, exciting season. So many cool calendar scheduled dates, cool, big games, prime time, a lot of them. Everyone's so excited about this team in town. And, it's all an unknown right now. We don't know about any of that stuff and whether any of that stuff will matter.
Wear your mask, wash your hands, attend those Zoomers. Hollywood's all bulked up. I just want to see what 180 pounds on Hollywood's going to look like, because last year looked like he was going to blow away. So we got changes around here. We'll be monitoring them. Keep up the great work. Keep reporting, and we'll keep circling back with you and keep reading what you're doing out at The Athletic, man. I appreciate you.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Nestor. Stay healthy.
Jeff Zrebiec from The Athletic, and you can follow his work, and tens of thousands do, in all things Ravens coverage. As I said in the beginning, I don't miss everybody around Owings Mills, but I miss Pizza with Zrebiec on Wednesdays. You can find me out in the bay at Toyota.com, Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the little camera takes us. including our WNSTV YouTube channel. Along with Don Moeller, we are merging the Baltimore Positive and the WNST brands. You're going to see that in a couple of weeks with an all-new cool website. So be on the lookout for that. We're calm. We're local. We're Baltimore Positive. We are WNST.net AM 1570. We never stop talking Baltimore sports and positive.